Have you ever wondered how education has played a role in shaping nations and civilizing the so-called natives? Today we delve into a riveting exploration of this very concept. Our journey takes us through the annals of history where the term natives was widely used, often as a label for indigenous populations subjected to colonial rule. This term, with its historical baggage, is a stark reminder of a time when education was used as a tool for indoctrination rather than enlightenment. Yet, it's pivotal to remember that education, in its purest form, has been instrumental in shaping societies, fostering empathy, and building bridges between disparate cultures. It has been a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change, and a cornerstone for many a civilization. The power of education to mold nations and transform native populations is an intriguing narrative, one that is deeply intertwined with the history of humanity itself. Dive with us as we explore the history and impact of education on nations and native populations. The story begins with the colonial era, a time of exploration, exploitation, and transformation. A period when the powers of the West set out to explore and colonize distant lands, and in the process sought to civilize the indigenous people they encountered. Education became a powerful tool in this endeavor. In India, for instance, the British saw Indian education as a way to instill their own values and culture into the fabric of the Indian society. The introduction of English as the medium of instruction in schools was a strategic move to create a class of Indians who were, as Lord Macaulay put it, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. This was a clear attempt to mold the Indian mind to fit the British worldview. Moving to Africa, the colonial education system was also used as an instrument of control. The European colonizers aimed to create a workforce that would serve their economic interests. They established schools that taught basic literacy and numeracy, but also instilled a sense of inferiority in the African minds. The curriculum often portrayed Europe as superior and advanced, while Africa was depicted as primitive and backward. Over in the Americas, the indigenous populations were subjected to similar tactics. The European colonizers used education to erase indigenous cultures and languages. Boarding schools were set up where native children were taught to abandon their heritage and adopt European ways. This was a clear attempt to assimilate them into the dominant culture. However, it's crucial to remember that despite the oppressive nature of colonial education, it also laid the groundwork for modern education systems in many parts of the world. Many colonized nations, after gaining independence, adapted these systems to cater to their own needs and realities. As we can see, education served as a double-edged sword during colonial times. On one hand, it was a tool of oppression and control, but on the other, it became a foundation for future educational advancements. The legacy of colonial education is a complex one and continues to shape the world we live in today. With the end of colonial rule, the newly independent nations faced the challenge of educating their masses. This was not a small task. Many of these nations grappled with widespread illiteracy, a lack of infrastructure, and the remnants of a colonial education system that was designed to serve the interests of the colonizers, not the colonized. They were tasked with creating an education system from scratch, one that would serve their own people and promote their own culture and values. The first challenge was to increase literacy rates. Many nations adopted mass literacy campaigns targeting both children and adults. In some places, schools were built in rural areas and teachers were trained to meet the growing demand for education. The aim was not just to teach the populace to read and write, but to equip them with the skills necessary to participate in a modern economy. The second challenge was to decolonize education. This meant not just changing the curriculum, but also changing the way education was delivered. The colonial education system was often rigid and hierarchical, based on the idea that the colonizers were superior and the colonized needed to be civilized. Post-colonial nations sought to create an education system that was more egalitarian, one that respected and valued the knowledge and culture of the local people. Decolonizing education also meant teaching history from the perspective of the colonized, not the colonizers. It meant acknowledging the atrocities committed during colonial rule and the resistance of the colonized people. It meant teaching students to be critical of the colonial legacy and to take pride in their own culture and heritage. But the task of post-colonial education was not just about addressing past injustices. It was also about preparing for the future. It was about creating a workforce that could drive economic development and a citizenry that could participate in democratic governance. Despite the enormity of the task, these nations were not deterred. They embraced the challenge and strived to create an education system that would serve their people best. They understood that education was not just about imparting knowledge, but about empowering individuals and transforming societies. Despite the challenges, these nations strived to create an education system that would serve their people best. As the world became more interconnected, the role of education in shaping nations and civilizing individuals took on new dimensions. In the whirlwind of globalization, the landscape of education has been dramatically transformed. No longer confined within the borders of nations, knowledge now flows freely across continents, intertwining cultures and ideas. This global exchange of information and perspectives has turned educational institutions into hubs for the production of global citizens. But what does it mean to be a global citizen? It's a term that's been bandied about quite a bit, but its definition remains elusive. Some view it as an individual who is aware of the wider world, has a sense of their role as a world citizen, respects and values diversity, and is willing to act to make the world a more equitable and sustainable place. On the other hand, there are those who argue that the concept of a global citizen is just another form of civilizing the native. They contend that this global citizenry is a new form of cultural imperialism, imposing Western values and norms on diverse cultures under the guise of globalization. In this context, education becomes a contested terrain, a site where differing views on what it means to be civilized are debated and negotiated. The classroom becomes a microcosm of the global stage where issues of identity, diversity, and inclusion are played out. Globalization also presents challenges. The standardization of education that often accompanies globalization can lead to a loss of cultural diversity. The danger here is that education becomes a one-size-fits-all model that fails to respect and nurture the rich tapestry of cultures that make up our global community. Yet, amidst these debates and challenges, the power of education remains undeniable. It continues to shape societies, to mold individuals, to stir minds, and to ignite change. It's a potent tool that, wielded wisely, can bridge divides, foster understanding, and cultivate a sense of shared humanity. In this global era, education continues to be a powerful tool in shaping societies and individuals. Looking forward, what does the future hold for education and its role in civilizing the native and shaping nations? As we stand on the precipice of the future, we see a vision of education that is diverse, inclusive, and globally connected. The walls of the classroom are breaking down, replaced by a world where learning is not confined to four walls or a specific time of day. The future of education is both exciting and challenging. It's exciting because there's the potential for a more democratic and equitable system where every student, regardless of their cultural or socioeconomic background, has access to quality education. It's challenging because we're navigating uncharted waters, and there are debates about what education should look like and its role in society. One of the key debates is the role of education in civilizing the native and shaping nations. Historically, education has been used as a tool for assimilation, often erasing indigenous cultures and histories. Today, there's a growing recognition of the need to respect and value all cultures and histories in the education system. In the future, we could see an education system that not only recognizes but celebrates diversity. An education that doesn't seek to civilize but to understand, to appreciate, and to learn from. An education that doesn't just teach us about the world but teaches us how to live in it, with respect for all cultures and histories. Moreover, we might see a shift from a one-size-fits-all approach to a more personalized education. Technology could play a crucial role in this, enabling tailored learning experiences that cater to each student's unique needs and learning styles. There's also a growing awareness of the need for lifelong learning. As the world changes at an increasingly rapid pace, the ability to continue learning and adapting is more important than ever. As we move forward, it is crucial to remember the lessons of the past and strive for an education system that respects and values all cultures and histories. We have the opportunity to shape the future of education, and in doing so, shape a more understanding, inclusive, and respectful world. The journey of education from the colonial era to the present day is a complex and fascinating one. We've traversed through time, understanding how colonial education aimed at civilizing the native, molding them into a form that was deemed fit by the colonizers. We've seen the transformation in the post-colonial era, where nations struggled and strived to reclaim their educational systems, redefining and restructuring them to suit their cultural ethos and national aspirations. As we ventured into the era of globalization, we discovered how education became a universal phenomenon, transcending borders, connecting minds, and fostering global citizens. Moving forward, we've envisaged the future of education, where technology and innovation will continue to play a crucial role. Understanding this journey is vital as it helps us comprehend the power of education. It underscores the significance of education in shaping societies, influencing minds, and molding individuals. As we continue to educate ourselves and others, let's remember the power education holds in shaping societies and individuals.